Jake, you're muted. I can't hear you. We didn't hear anything.
Great.
All right, you have to start over, but it's awesome.
Yeah,
It's all good.
awesome. Okay. I wonder if you can just restart the live stream so it starts here.
We already have a comment live though on Facebook.
Yeah. Okay. We're not going to restart. Okay. Hey guys, welcome to the Mill Summit live stream. We're going to get started when I'm not on mute here. We knew this was going to happen. This week, we're actually getting started with the first official week of live streams. We are going to be doing 3. We're going to establish a actual schedule and release things on the same day at the same time, but this week we're all over the place. But today on the show we have Melissa and Rice. Hi Melissa, how are you today?
Hey, pretty good.
Awesome. Melissa is a mental health thought leader. She's an anti-bullying and suicide prevention advocate, and she is on the speaker circuit with this. She has been speaking professionally as a keynote speaker on mental health and these topics for about 10 years, and she even has a book on this. The title of her book is The People You Meet in Real Life, which is inspired by stories of her youth and how she's been able to navigate anxiety and depression and how we're not alone. And that is highly relevant right now, as during the COVID crisis, all of us are feeling some type of alone. Fortunately, we're an essential business and I can actually be around my colleagues. So Melissa, I'm going to be asking you how you are coping with things during this time. How are you doing today, Melissa? How are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing okay. It's been with a 2 and a 5-year-old and a puppy. Don't ask me why I got a puppy, but it's been a struggle at times, but I hate to say it's a bad day. I like to say there's bad times in the day and I can come back from that. So trying to focus on the good in some of the days is cool. And when it's nice out, it helps because we can get outside and enjoy the sun. So doing pretty good.
Yeah, that is one thing that I think about daily here. At least we do have nice weather. I can't imagine what it would be like if we had a bad winter, which we basically didn't have at all. Yeah. So all of those gloomy depression moments plus all of this. So Melissa, it being a mental health advocate, you must be the person that many people reach to on a daily basis. What are you finding are the patterns of concern? What are the pain points that you hear out there in the world?
Really, with anxiety, it's really the unknown. So people with an anxiety disorder might be facing this on a daily basis, but now we have people who don't even have the diagnosis facing anxiety. What is going to happen? Am I going to get it? Is my kid going to get it? When can this lockdown stop? And then you have the, I guess, fears with depression and being depressed with the isolation, especially with those who don't have anyone in their homes that they're living with. It's kind of a worry with the isolation factor. So really trying to keep up with FaceTime and connecting with friends and family is really big. So I think just the unknown is really the scariest part of this whole thing with our mental health.
Yeah, I think what's funny, I've been through some bouts of anxiety and depression being on this entrepreneurial journey. I quit my corporate job 2 years ago. And so one of the things that I recognized early on when I wasn't feeling myself is just having the self-awareness to even know that you are facing some mental health challenges. I think we're finally getting into the days when the stigma around mental health is beginning to fade, but I think those are the early days. So to anyone who is not even sure if they're feeling like they're incredibly isolated or like the anxiety or depression is creeping in, what are ways that you suggest people look to for indicators? How do you even know that you might have something happening?
So I speak for 2 organizations, NAMI Mainline PA and Michael's Giving Hand. And both of these programs allow me to go into schools. And when I go into schools, I speak to students. Now, there's a statistic, 1 in 4. So we have 1 in 4 young adults with a mental illness. But I speak to them, but I always say, what about the 3 out of 4? The 3 out of 4 might not have the diagnosis, but we all have external things that affect us. Divorce, breakups, getting a bad grade, not making the sports team. And we might be anxious. We might be depressed. We might not have that diagnosis, but following those factors and those symptoms is really important. If you have a friend or a child that is not doing the normal things they love to do, being isolated, irritable. But I always say it's very difficult in this situation with coronavirus to detect that, because what if the kid's just in his room because he's in his room for coronavirus? What if he's not hanging with friends because he can't hang with friends? So it is very difficult to really pinpoint those factors right now. On a normal day, you can see those factors a little bit better. But what I'm telling parents is have a conversation with your child and saying, how are you feeling today? What's going on? And if you don't have that relationship, reach out to somebody who does, like a grandma, a coach, just to check in on that child. Even adults, we need to check in on each other, especially if you have a child living alone that's maybe in their 30s, really just having that conversation. But just really being real with yourself and letting yourself know that it's okay to have those crap days and those crap moments. If you can't come out of them, that would be a sign that, maybe you do need to reach out for some help.
Yeah, this is I'm I'm getting messages from people that I haven't heard from in years, and random calls from family members, and doing my best to reciprocate it. And it's a very, very nice thing to get a random message from someone besides just calling or texting. This is one of the ironies around this, right? You can't necessarily just show up with a batch of cookies. You may be able to. I heard the other day that Joe Rogan, he's still conducting his podcast. He just makes people take the coronavirus test before they walk in his house. So one day we'll get there. We'll all be armed with COVID tests, and it's like, hey, we can hang out, but test yourself. Besides just a standard digital outreach, a call or a text or an email, what are some other clever ways that you might suggest people reach out and show their affinity for someone that you care about, and it really might bring them out of something that has them feeling isolated, has them feeling alone and anxious?
So my sister turned 26 on March 30th, and she knew that, we weren't going to have a party and celebrate. So I actually sent a mass text to everyone. We met in a parking lot and we drove to her house, and everyone got out, stood 6 feet away. And we all sang happy birthday to her, and she came out crying. And I think it was hard for us to not be able to hug my grandmom and, my friends. But it was a real amazing experience to be able to see people and see the joy that she has. So I think all over Facebook, there's viral videos of people driving through, beeping their horns for, birthdays, etc. So I think weddings, I saw they were supposed to have their wedding that day, and the people hired a singer to sing their wedding song, and they danced in the middle of the street with people all around, and just things like that. I think being clever and staying away, precautions, masks, 6 feet away, but just it's okay to do those things if you're being safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my friend Chris Darty, who he's a PT for Christianicare. The biggest employer here in Delaware is an organization that's right here on the front lines, and he's doing all of his telehealth and can stay safe. But he sent me a diagram of how to have a fire pit guys' night where we're staying 6 feet away from each other, and how big it has to be in order to create a big circle. And speaking of weddings, I got the phone call from my brother yesterday. They're canceling their wedding for June 20th. So for the people who I noticed that while all these things are getting canceled and everything has changed, I'm sure you had speaker gigs and events with students and mental health.
All canceled.
Everything's canceled, right? Everything's canceled. But I noticed that last month, I think actually exactly a month ago, I thought it was March 20th, I saw that you had an article in the Philadelphia Inquirer. And as someone who is a thought leader and a speaker, I guess technically it's your own side business, right? Like you as a speaker is that's a business, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's my identity in a way. I just am a storyteller of my own story and other stories. But I get to work with, incredible organizations and partner with them, which is pretty incredible. But yeah, that's just how I identify myself as speaker for mental health.
Yeah, it's great. So we work with a lot of speakers, so especially for the MILLSUMMIT, it's a speaker event. So anyone who is someone who is an actual entrepreneur and speaks a ton and they had their whole year derailed, or somebody like you who works with a lot of organizations and still gets out there and has themselves established as a thought leader, gets booked at conferences, and maybe even people who are looking to start doing that. One of the ways that you can still maintain your attention and relevance during this time is things like publishing content and getting that in the face of lots of people by getting it in the Philadelphia Inquirer. So I'd love to hear if you have any strategies or advice for people who are looking to stay relevant during this time like you have been.
So Zoom has been a gift. I've actually been able to schedule programs in schools with students and do presentations. So we did a bunch with parents, with students. I have some scheduled. And although my presentations were canceled in schools, I'm able to do this over Zoom and have live Q&A. And some groups are smaller, some are bigger. But I think reaching out to the community, like Jen, I'm so thankful. My friend from college had asked me to come and do this. any opportunity you have to get the word out and, what you're doing and promoting positivity, I think people are going to jump on that. So things like this, I reached out to 92.5's XTU Andy Summers, the radio host, and we did a Zoom for 20 minutes, and it's going to be up soon. Just be creative. Don't sell yourself short. Believe in yourself. If you get denied, you'll get accepted by someone else. So just keep pushing through and try. That's the best, thing I would say.
Yeah, we've been blessed with a lot of relationships with media and just ways to stay out there and be on people's podcast shows and things. We've been able to donate a lot of computers during this time. So it's at least a positive story, one where you turn on the news and it seems like the sky is falling every day. So as someone who has literally written a book about this in terms of getting through times like this when you're alone and isolated, and I would say you truly are an expert in maintaining hope and staying positive in a time when honestly you have to go back a long time in history to find another time to compare it to today, right? It's unprecedented. What are things that you suggest for people to stay as positive as possible and look towards a bright future, because it is hard to do so, but we know we have to do that to keep going forward, right?
So I always say starting the conversation is the best thing. And I'm going to throw it up there. This is what the book looks like. And it's not just my story. The book is actually me asking the question, am I alone? Do I matter? From 5 years old till now. And for me, I was blinded by thinking I was the only one struggling because I was judged and trying to hide and live two lives. And I thought that if people knew that I had anxiety and depression, I would be defined. And I got to a point where I had suicide ideation, where I thought being here was, not being here was the best thing. And I actually had a friend who saw the signs and at 16 years old came to me and literally said, Miss, I'm here for you. Please talk to me. And it changed my life. She talked to my mom. I was able to start getting help. But the point was, when I started getting help and got to college, I started meeting other people and realizing that everyone had a story. And the girl on my soccer team, I had no idea that she had an eating disorder. The girl in my class, I had no idea she had a brain tumor that was removed and she was struggling now to read and write and walk. And you see these people and you think you're the only one and you think you're alone. And then we start the conversation and it's like, wow. And now I have 30 people that I've met in my life, all from the Philadelphia area in this book, who share their stories of an amputee survival, cancer, mental health, losing a child to suicide. And what I believe in this time is reading or listening and conversing in other people's stories to hear what they've gotten through, not to take away from your own story, but knowing your story is valid, that everything you've gone through is real and you're resilient and strong, and hearing other people's stories to say, well, they got through that. I can get through this. Not comparing your stories, but understanding that yours is yours, theirs is theirs, but we can inspire each other. That's what's helping me get through, to be honest. Even when I speak and students open up now in Zoom, seniors who won't have their proms and their graduations, they're struggling so much. But if we can start that conversation, the person next to them who never talked to them before would say, oh, I'm feeling the exact same way. So I believe in connection and conversing, and, letting people know they're not alone is the biggest thing to help us get through.
This is great. Yeah, I'll never forget. We've got some questions rolling in here too. This is great. Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Sarah. Excited to pass those over. So I'll never forget when I lived away from my family, graduating in 2008 for 8 years, right? I was distanced from everyone. And this is when I had some mental health struggles. And I'll never forget, I went to see a counselor and he said, you see all these people walking around out there on the street? Yeah. Everybody's acting like they have their crap together and none of them do. None of them. And everybody's acting like they do, right? And so these are those times where just a little outreach or just showing that you care can really change for someone. And Jen has a question that's exactly connected to this. Yeah. She says, what are some suggestions for how to make that outreach? I think that kind of, it actually connects to Sarah Grace Fulton's question, where maybe millennials and some Gen Z people, if you were born 1996 or earlier, you're Gen Z, it's natural communication isn't always our strong suit. So the question is, how might you reach out if you're suspicious of a family member or loved one that is struggling, and what are some other ways that it can be done? I guess you already covered that actually, but how might you know? This is Jen's question. How might you know?
Yeah. So first off, I want to thank you for sharing your story, because you doing that is starting a conversation as well. And now there's two of us who shared our stories, and hopefully that opens a conversation. So thank you for that. And the second part is, so I do run a program at the University of Pennsylvania. It's called Cogwell, and it's with students, where we actually teach active listening to Penn students, undergrads on campus, because Penn has a Penn face. They hide behind everything. They take 8 classes, sleep 8 hours, or in 8 clubs. And obviously we know that's not possible. So basically we have a program. We go, and my students are trained and go out to other groups, sororities, sports teams, and they teach active listening. And that means, asking open-ended questions, body language, teaching that, eye contact. And I think the best way that we can see if someone's struggling or start that conversation is, ask that question, start that conversation with open-ended questions. And the truth is, one of the myths is that if you ask someone if, they're thinking about taking their own life or dying by suicide, that it's going to cause it. It will not. Actually, a direct question actually starts that conversation. And for me, it did when she said, I'm here, please talk to me, tell me what's wrong. So asking the direct questions and open-ended questions is huge. And just letting people know you care is the biggest thing. The only thing I wanted my whole life was to hear that you're not a drama queen, you're not making this up, please just stop. And having that 16-year-old girl say, hey, I'm here for you, please talk to me, was literally what I needed in that moment. So just showing you care, keeping the conversation going is so important. And the biggest thing is open-ended questions and being direct, for sure.
Yeah, this is really good. Someone mentioned, Julie, how important active listening is, and it's one thing that I think in going to so many conferences, I love. This is why being a part of the MILLSUMMIT team is easy for me. But I love networking and meeting new people and that sort of thing. And I can't tell you how many times I meet people and at an event, and they're like, wow, this was the greatest conversation I had all day. Yeah. And I didn't say anything. Like they just laugh. And when it comes to someone who is not feeling themselves, and that's a good type of not listening. When people aren't listening to someone who's literally like passively crying for help or is in a bad spot, like that active listening is very important. And I'm not sure if people are getting better at listening as we go through and navigate this world with technology and fewer points of practice. So I'd love to hear Melissa again as someone who literally teaches active thought leader or active listening at a Ivy League institution. If you could have some bullet points for us to be better active listeners, what would those be?
So I work with an incredible social worker named Barbara Burley, and she actually created this thing called Friends Reach Out. And I can actually provide it, and it gives bullet points with the Friends Reach Out. And one of them is, find a safe space to talk to someone. You're not going to go in a restaurant and there'll be a million people and say, hey, let's talk about your issue. So you want to find a safe, private place. One of the bullets is literally put all distractions down. Get off your cell phone. If you hear a ding from Twitter, oh well. Do not Snapchat while you're trying to talk to someone. Put that away. Have eye contact. Have proper body language is a huge thing. Asking open-ended questions. Do not point the finger and said, you are doing this. That feels like I'm going to get defensive. You can actually turn it around into an I statement and say, I feel like you might be struggling, or I'm worried because you happen to go into class, or I'm worried because it seems like you've been in your room all day and haven't come out during this time. So those types of things can really change a conversation, and not really comparing yourself to someone and saying, oh, well, I went through this, it was worse. No, you need to validate that person's feelings and paraphrase it. And you can say, I haven't been through the same thing, but, and I may not understand, but I'm here for you. I think just those little things will help the conversation in the world, just be so much better. So, and don't be afraid of silence. Let the silence sit. That's the hardest thing we do. And with interviews, I know that media is trained to get us with the silence because it's awkward and we say something, but let it sit, take it in, and then paraphrase it and validate. I think they're the most important things.
Yeah, silence is such a powerful thing. We do a lot of speaker coaching over here, and it's funny how powerful that silence actually is. It's so ironic that no sound is the most attention-grabbing thing in communication. So I think, it's been a really good 20 minutes with you, Melissa. I think we have one more question, though, and it's specifically around the MILLSUMMIT in general. Now, we have been withholding thoughts of having a virtual summit. We still haven't made the official announcement, but either way, we have been talking quite a bit about mental health and in the incorporation of mental health into the summit this year. So as a thought leader, what are some ways, and I think I would appreciate for in-person events, because one day COVID will not be a thing, and for a lot of even virtual events this year, what are ways that event organizers can incorporate mental health aspects into their events?
So I think one of the conversation starters is having a speaker on mental health. I would love to be a part of that if possible, but having activities that surrounds mental health, conversation starters. You can actually do an active listening technique where you give cards out, and 4 groups have different directions where one's not supposed to listen, one be on their phone, one really listen, give the full attention, having a real scenario that someone's going through and talking about it. Because remember, mental health is in our whole life. Everything we do in our life affects our mental health because it's emotion. So really the biggest thing is conversation starters, having those activities. And I think having a speaker to really start that conversation is really, really huge for sure.
Yeah, good suggestion. We got one more question. I'm willing, unless you got to run to an in-person meeting that you got right around the corner, Melissa.
Yeah.
Keep firing these questions. So another question from Jen. Thank you, Jen, for the questions. How have high school students responded to you about, I'm sure the context is mental health around the crisis, being home, being a high school student, it's got to be brutal having no social life and you're stuck with your parents. You hate your parents. What are the high school students saying?
So, even when I'm in schools doing in person, a lot of times I'll have, a lot of students come up to me and say, thank you for starting the conversation. I feel this way, I would like to get help, or I have a friend. But I think it's really the same, really opening up and just having the conversation that, I am struggling with this. Oh, you feel that way as well. Having that connection. It's been tougher because the high school doesn't have, their schooling, and even college students are struggling with that. I think the biggest age we're worried about is really the ones that are graduating from high school and college. So yeah, they're down, they're struggling, but people are doing virtual proms and trying to find the positive in things. And I think if you think that a child is struggling in that, again, have that conversation, talk to them. But I promise you, we're going to get through this. And I promise you that taking these steps and everything you're going through, you are so much stronger for going through this, and you're so resilient. And I just need you to be kind to yourself and tell yourself that even though it's really hard, you're doing an incredible, incredible job, all of you. So
this is great. And I usually, when I interview people, have some final words of wisdom and advice, but I think that message is a perfect fit for that. So Melissa, again, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it. I want to give a big shout out to Capital One, who's a sponsor of not only the Mill Summit, the Millennial Summit, but also the Mill Summit live stream. And go ahead and follow Melissa on social if you have any shout outs for how people can learn more from you and how to follow you. Melissa, what do you have to say to them?
How to follow me? I'm the People You Meet in Real Life on Facebook and the People You Meet in Life on Instagram. You can also please follow Michael's Giving Hand on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Guys, leave a comment. Make sure you like this stream. We're going to be doing this more. Make sure you like the Mill Summit on Facebook, and stay tuned for more updates about the summit in August, whether we're going to be taking it virtual or you're going to be seeing each other in person. Thanks, guys. See you later on another stream. Bye-bye. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m., we have Monique, who's going to be on the stream. Bye-bye.